Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I am going to be reacting to your unpopular romance book opinions. I asked you guys on my Instagram to submit all of your unpopular opinions, all of your hot takes about romance books, and I'm going to be reacting to those opinions, sharing if I agree or disagree with them, and giving you all of my own possibly unpopular opinions. This video was totally inspired by Samantha from Books with Samantha. She does a series on her channel of romance hot takes, and then also I saw Jess from Peace Love Books do a reaction to unpopular romance opinions, so I wanted to share all of my opinions as well. And I'm going to be keeping everybody anonymous, so I'm just gonna jump right in. I got so many submissions, I might end up having to do a part 2 to this video, but we'll see how many I can get through. So the first opinion that I got was submitted many different times, and that is that indie romances are better than traditionally published romances, and I agree with this. I have really been struggling the past year to 2 years with traditionally published romances. I feel like the traditionally published romances that I've been reading lately have all been very bland. They've all been very similar. They've all kind of blurred together. There isn't a lot of originality in them. And I think that that's just a marker of traditionally published romances marketing more towards mainstream readers than specifically romance readers, which is what I love so much about indie romances. They are written specifically for the intense, hardcore, romance-loving readers, and I feel like they give us, or at least they give me, a lot more of what I'm looking for, a lot more emotional depth. There's a lot more risks and things that authors are able to do in indie romances that traditional publishers just won't let them get away with. Do you think that Berkeley or Avon is ever going to publish an ex-boyfriend's dad romance? I don't think so. So yes, I definitely agree. I prefer indie romances. Another opinion that I saw a lot, to the point where I don't even think this is an unpopular opinion, and that is that we don't like the illustrated cover trend. And I definitely agree with that. I think at first they were very cute. I liked them when they started coming out. However, I think that publishers are using the illustrated covers way too liberally, and they have no meaning anymore. It's like now I cannot differentiate YA books from contemporary fiction, from romances, and then even within romances, I can't differentiate steamy romances and fluffy rom-coms. They all look the same. If I can't tell if a book is young adult or if it's a steamy adult romance because the covers look the same, what is going on? I don't like it. I want the trend to stop. Another opinion I saw a lot was that epilogues are boring, or they are unnecessary, or you don't always need to see an epilogue where a couple gets married or has babies, and I agree with this completely. I've talked about this before. I typically skip epilogues because I just don't care. I don't care if the couple gets married. I don't care if the couple has babies. I'm just uninterested. It's very rare that I will read an epilogue of a romance book, and I would love to see more romance books end not in marriages and not with babies. Obviously, for some romances that makes sense, but for all of them to end that way is just boring to me. That's not how all relationships are. And so I would love to see some more non-conventional romance endings. Obviously happy endings, but you can have a happy ending that doesn't result in marriage or babies. I got a lot of this same opinion that says romance books should end in a happily ever after. Books without HEAs aren't romance. A lot of that. I was very surprised by the amount of people that said this, because I did not think this was an unpopular opinion, and this is actually something that I find very interesting, because I feel like lately every time I'm on TikTok and I see a book talk about a romance book, I look at the comments and half of the comments are people saying but does it have a happy ending? Does it end happily? Is there a happy ending? And I'm just like, who hurt all of you? What romance books are you guys reading that don't have happy endings? Because I hate to tell y'all, that's not a romance book. Romance books, by definition, have to have a happy ending. If it doesn't have a happy ending, it's not a romance book, it's just a book with romance. So this one says, I'm not a huge fan of characters giving their love interest a pet name. It can be very cringe. I agree and I disagree. I think it depends on what the name is. I don't like overly cutesy names like baby girl or babe or honey or sugar, very sweet cutesy names. I'm not a fan of those. Baby girl is probably the worst one ever, but I love a weird pet name, like a pet name that maybe the main character or whatever doesn't know what it means until later on, and they find out what the meaning is and they're like, oh my god. Especially if it's like a word in a language that only the love interest speaks, and so they call them like a term of endearment in their language and the main character doesn't know what that means until later on. Anything like that I really love, and especially if it's in some sort of like rivals or enemies to lovers romance and the love interest is like calling the main character a pet name the whole time, but she has no idea what it means until later on, and she realizes that like the whole time he's been calling her like my love or beautiful or like something really sweet. It's just like, it's nice. The next one is jealousy is not hot or cute. This one is very interesting to me because this is one of those things where in real life I will not tolerate jealousy. I think it's aggressive. However, in books, there's something about it that I really like. What I don't like is when jealousy crosses over into like acts of aggression. So I don't mind when characters feel jealous. I actually really like it because it shows how much they care. And usually it is like a moment where a character finally realizes how much they like the other person because they're feeling jealous. But I don't like when they act upon that jealousy in very toxic ways. So just like the simple feeling of jealousy, I'm cool with, but when the jealousy turns into toxic action, that's when I have a problem with it. Fake dating tropes are so unrealistic and never happen in real life. Listen, this is not true. I was in a fake dating plot, okay? Where I will say that they're unrealistic is that the person that I fake dated, we did not fall in love. We were just friends and we just stayed friends and we just fake dated. We did not fall in love. That's where it's unrealistic, okay? But fake dating happens. It happens. I did it. It was a fun time, and I really like fake dating tropes in books. However, I will say fake marriage a million times better than fake dating. It's like fake dating, but the stakes are turned up to 1,000. Okay, the next one is I don't get why people love the only one bed trope. It isn't really romantic. Okay, I disagree with this so much. That is definitely an unpopular opinion. It isn't romantic. I think that the only one bed trope is so romantic. It creates so much tension. Usually the only one bed trope happens with characters who haven't admitted their feelings for each other. They are like keeping each other at a distance. And so there's so much tension. And then the only one bed trope brings them physically close together. And it has some of the elements of romance that I love the most. And that is like the really small touches, the glances, the like, oh my God, our shoulders touch. And literally the best part of the only one bed trope is when they go to sleep, not touching, separately, and while they were sleeping in the middle of the night, they started cuddling without realizing it, and they wake up and they're like embraced. Not romantic. So romantic. It is so romantic. The next one says romance audiobooks are better than the physical books. And I agree with this one. I love romance audiobooks. Just in general, I prefer audiobooks, but I think that romance audiobooks are great. Now, some of them can be bad if the narrators aren't it, but there are a lot of romance audiobook narrators who only narrate romance books and are so fantastic at it. Their voices just hold so much emotion. They really bring the characters to life. They read the steamy scenes very well. And I think a really good audiobook narrator can make a mediocre romance book really great. The next one is romance needs to be dual perspective. I think for the most part, I agree with this. Like when I think of my favorite romance books, most of them are dual perspective. I really, really like getting both points of views. I think that when you're only getting the main character's point of view, I have a much harder time connecting because I want to know what the love interest is thinking. I want to know like what the other side of the romance is. The next one is I don't like romance covers. Others judge a book by their covers and treat you poorly and act like you're stupid for reading romance. I fully understand that people are gonna judge romance books. However, I feel like, at least for me, I will never let somebody else's ignorance and judgment dictate what I do and what I enjoy. I love romance covers. The cheesier, the better. Give me abs, give me naked people. Like I want those covers. I prefer those covers and I will read them in public. I don't care, and neither should you. I got a lot of, I don't like the hating game. The hating game isn't that good. The hating game is overhyped. And I don't know where I stand with this. I read the hating game such a long time ago. It was before I really got into romance as much as I am now. And I really enjoyed it when I read it, but would I enjoy it now? I don't know. I feel like that would be a good experiment for me to reread some of the romance books that I read at the beginning of my romance journey and see what I think of them now. The next one I got a lot of as well is that I wish we would see more body positivity or body diversity with men. We've been seeing a lot of more plus size heroines in romances, but not plus size men or men with different body types other than like buff with abs. And I fully agree with that. I would love to see that. I know that I've read a small handful of them. One of them that I can think of off the top of my head that I really liked was Zenny by Rebecca Weatherspoon, but I really totally agree, would love to see more, especially since in real life I'm not even attracted to guys with muscles and abs and who look like they spend all day at the gym. That's not my type at all. So I would love to see more body diversity. Let's get some tall, lanky, skinny dudes. Let's get some chubby dudes. Let's get some short kings, you know, like let's mix it up. So the next opinion, I got both sides of this, and that is the pregnancy or babies or secret baby trope. A lot of people said that they hate it. A lot of people said that they actually love it. You guys know where I fall on this. I hate it. I hate it so much. It's my least favorite trope. I really don't like it. And that's my own personal preference. Every time that I say I don't like surprise pregnancy tropes, I always get people in my comments like, well, I had a surprise pregnancy and it was the best thing that ever happened to me. And like, cool, that's great. I don't like it in books. I'm not saying that your unplanned pregnancy is a problem. I'm just saying it doesn't toot my horn, okay? The next one is 90% of romances are sexist or misogynistic. I don't agree with that. I don't know where you're getting that statistic. I think in general, out of all the genres of books that I read, romance consistently is the most diverse, the most inclusive, the most feminist. Most of the romances that I read heavily focus on consent and boundaries within a relationship, so I fully do not agree with this one. The next one I got a lot was I don't like steamy romances, I don't like excessive steam, I don't like too many sex scenes, I don't like smut, and I feel like that's totally valid. That's a personal preference. I feel like you guys know where I fall on that. I quite enjoy it. But again, it's a personal preference. There's so many different levels to romance and steam. That's why I always say just read whatever you are comfortable with. Okay, so the next one is dark romance is sick and not at all entertaining. Okay. Okay, this opinion I don't agree with, and I want to talk about it for a second because not just with dark romances, but a lot of different romances in general. I hate this mentality of like, because you don't like something, it's wrong or it's gross, or people who like it are disgusting. And I feel like this is kind of not triggering me, but upsetting me a little bit because I did just get a flood of comments on one of my videos of people talking about one of the books that I read and being like, this is disgusting, that's gross, how can you read it? I'm a little sensitive about it at the moment. And I really don't like this idea of shaming people for what they enjoy because you don't like it. I fully understand. Not everyone is going to like monster romances, or not everyone is going to like dark romances, but that doesn't mean that they're sick or disgusting, or that the people who read them are wrong, or that you're better because you don't. Also, I do want to say when it comes to dark romances, there's so many different levels to it, and there are certain dark romances that are just too dark for me personally, and I won't read them. But that is my personal preference, and there's a lot of dark romances that I really enjoy. So I think that like just a message to anyone. I don't want to like call this person out specifically because I'm sure they didn't mean it in a rude way, but just in general, when you're talking about things that you don't like, I think it's important to recognize that some people do like that, and the way that you speak about things sometimes could hurt people's feelings or make people feel like you're shaming them for what they enjoy. And I think that that's one of the best things about the romance genre is that people, specifically women, are allowed to express themselves and express their sexuality and the things that they enjoy, and maybe the things that society thinks is wrong. You're able to explore that, and let's just all be a little bit more open-minded. The next one is female books are just too soft to be enjoyable. I agree with that. I've talked about this before. I struggle so much finding female romances that aren't just like fluffy and soft and cute. cute. I have found a handful of them that are great. I'm still on the hunt for more. What I would love more than anything is like a Sapphic mafia romance or like Sapphic alien romance. Like I just want all the wild and crazy romances. Come on, give it to us. We want it. We need it. The next one is I hate age gaps. I can tolerate under 5 years. I totally respect that opinion. I understand it. I do not share the opinion, but it is valid. Okay, the next one I can't actually read out loud, so I'm going to censor it. But they said, I think when someone blanks the blank and blanks their blank, it's gross. I wish YouTube would let me read some of these because a lot of them are like really funny, but super inappropriate. The next one is I can't take seriously when the main character calls older love interest daddy. So I have a funny story about this. I used to hate the phrase daddy. Like I hated it so much. And then my friends and I started ironically saying daddy as a joke. And let me tell you, it's not a joke anymore. It's not a joke anymore. I like it now. So a piece of advice, you guys, never ironically say something that you don't like because you're gonna make yourself like it. Mistakes were made. I learned my lesson. I will never be doing that again. The next one is adult romances don't have to have sex or smut in them to be good. I agree and I disagree. I think that they definitely don't have to have sex to be good. However, I think that the sex portion is really important. I saw another opinion that says sex scenes are never necessary, and I fully disagree with that. I think that a really well-written sex scene furthers the romantic relationship a lot and can say a lot about the couple and their emotional connection. You guys know I like sex scenes. Y'all know me. I don't have to pretend. So I agree with it and I don't. Like, I definitely can see an argument that they don't need to have them to be good, but I also think that sex scenes are often necessary in adult romances. The next one is I prefer enemies to lovers more in a fantasy setting than contemporary. I 100% agree with this. I think that it works so much better in fantasy because a lot of times enemies to lovers in contemporary fiction is just bullying. It's a bully romance, and I don't like bully romances. I guess maybe that's an unpopular opinion. I don't like bully romances. I've come to learn that about myself. I don't like them. They're not for me. Okay, this next one, I've been wanting to talk about this opinion for a while, and that is high school students should never be the main characters in a romance written for adults. I might ruffle some feathers with this one, but I agree. I agree with this. I feel very uncomfortable with adult romances about high school students. I know that there's a lot of really popular ones. I don't judge anyone for reading them. I would never judge anyone for any romances that they read, but for me, it does make me very uncomfortable. I don't want to read about high school students having explicit sex. I think my biggest problem with them is that I have never read a high school student romance that couldn't have taken place in college. Like, if you want the school setting, if that's what you want, just put just put them in college. I don't understand why it has to be high school. And that's one of the reasons why, like, I love Penelope Douglas, but I can't read half of her books because they take place in high school. And like her female-female romance that came out recently, I was so excited to read that. And then when it came out, I found out it was in high school. It's also a bully romance. It's a bully high school romance. Oh my God, the worst combination for me. I got a lot of, monster romances aren't for me. Monster romances are too weird for me. Listen, I fully understand that. I feel like my enjoyment of monster romances comes from how much I love horror movies. And I feel like a lot of monster romances are just like kind of like the combination of romance and horror. I really enjoy it, but I fully understand it's not for everyone. It is weird. It is weird, but I do enjoy it. I do enjoy it. So I think that those were all of the unpopular opinions I am going to react to in this video. There were so many more, so if you guys want me to do a part 2, let me know in the comments. Also, let me know what your unpopular opinions are for romance books, or if you agreed or disagreed with a lot of these opinions. Would love to discuss it with you guys. But thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in my next video.